Hi everyone, all the men out there. This is Simon Bevy. It's a blessing for us to have this brief conversation today. I've been looking down to this time, and I know you're listening to me or watching me from various places around the nations. And so I want to invite you. I think just been my pleasure to work with men for the last 15 years or so. It's been a blessing because I grew up as an unfinished man. I had just some challenges after losing my dad when I was young. And that made me just grow up with a burden to help other men who were struggling in the forest of masculinity and trying to find themselves and to find their hold uh, and to find true masculinity for what it is. And so it's exciting for us to have this conversation. Um, we have some programs that we do for men for the last few years. We started with the Boys to Men program that we are rebranding to 412. And we began to help the boys just become men and to work with the parents, to work with the fathers, work with the mothers to help the boys. And so, in case you'd want to get involved in any of that, mentoring boys and working with them, please let us know. So feel free to type out something, and then we get to work with fathers as well. I'm very passionate about fatherhood because I really believe that fatherhood is what determines the quality of masculinity in any community because fathers are the ones who model, they're the ones who show the example of what masculinity looks like to the watching sons and young people. So when boys are in crisis, it's really not a boy problem, it's a fatherhood crisis. And so we do a lot of training for fathers. We do a program called Intentional Dad, which is calling the fathers to intentionally engage and connect with their children. And in case you haven't done that, again, we're going to be doing that online from next week. And you're welcome to do that. But what I'm excited about is the Man Enough program. We're now calling it the XY Journey. It's a challenge for men, XY, for men to get to discover who they are. In fact, we call men to two things. We call men to be good men. And this is about character. We say a man is just as good as the weight of his integrity. So it's really about his character, his commitment to do what is right. That's not perfection. No man alive is perfect. But that there's a will and a commitment and a pursuit for what is right. And when they get it wrong, they wake up right back and they correct their ways and begin to pursue what is right again. And so we want men to be good men. I want to be a good man in terms of character, but I want to be good at being a man. I want to be a man who is skillful to play the roles of a man. And so during this crisis, I think both of those two aspects have been affected by men, for men. We're in a time of COVID-19. A lot of us men are now locked up in our homes, hence the title, lockdown, but not man down. We're locked down because of what is going on. Some of us are in trouble financially. Maybe we're in a crisis. You've lost your job. Things are not going very well at home. You're not able to support your son or your child wherever they are if you don't live with them. Or your business is not doing well, is in the high seas of this COVID waves, and you just don't know what to do. And so this is a hard time for all of us. Even being at home and spending a lot more time with our families than we're used to. For some of us, it's very stressful. Stress is when there's a change in environment and then we react to it in one way or another. And many times we get distressed. In other words, the stress becomes too much and begins to affect us during a time like this. So I've talked to some of the men. Some of the men are fearful. Others are angry because they're frustrated about all of this. They want it to get out of the way. They want to get back to business. And you're not alone. And so we've been challenged in the very foundation of our masculine call, which is to be good men, to have the character that would help and hold up, the weight of responsibility that we have as men. And then we need to be good at being men, which is take up our responsibility, have the skill and the information to do what we need to do. So anyway, I just want to invite you for this conversation. If your character is being shaken or your skill and ability to play your role is being shaken during this time, then it's a time for us to build up and build together. If some of your men or boys are not watching, please just invite them to a watch party. Let's have a bigger conversation for the next few minutes. And so I want to talk to us about the 5 C's through this crisis. The 5 C's through this crisis. Some C's as men that we can apply in our daily lives and we can use to take us through this. Well, I don't know whether you're seeing the end of this, because I'm seeing the end of this. Of course, afterwards, life may not be exactly what it used to be, but very soon I see this lifting up. But between now and then, of course, there's a lot of pressure. It's like a lot of us men have been put in a pressure cooker, and we're just being turned around in this kind of steam, and we need to come out better, not bitter. We need to be better men, but that man was so full of bitterness and all. Now, we have heard in some of the homes there's a lot more conflict right now, just because you're a lot more at home. There's some of the men who keep saying, we like it when it's just a short while at home. Then mama doesn't have a lot of time to tell us what we have done wrong. For a lot of men, when our wives tell us we need to talk, then we begin to build a defense right away, because we're wondering, what have we done again? What have we done again? So you can imagine right now we're locked up at home. Our children are there. Many of us have not connected very well with our children, so it's not easy to live with them all of this time. And then, of course, the mother who is of the children, your wife is there as well. And I know some of us are struggling in those relationships. And so wherever you are at life, whether you're baby daddy, whether you're married, whether you're single, this conversation applies to all of us. So, are you ready? Well, let me jump right into it. And remember again, I'm not talking at you, I'm talking with you. We're having a conversation. Some of the things I'm going to say are really double-edged sword. There is much powerful and instructional to me as they are to you. So we're really just sitting around the fireplace and having a conversation. A friend of mine says why men like to sit around the fireplace is because then they don't get to look into each other's face. I've come to realize men are not very face to face. They don't like to stare into each other's face. They're more shoulder to shoulder. They want to have a conversation but have their attention on something else, on football or fire or something else, but not on each other. We sort of get a little either ashamed or a little scared. Try it with one of your boys. Just stand and look at them in the face for like 3 minutes. They're probably going to look down or knock you out. But I think the idea is we are around the fire and we are all talking and we're praying that this fire will warm each one of us. This fire of the word we're going to discuss is going to warm us and it's going to make us better men. Who doesn't want to be a better man? I think everyone does. So the 5 things, pretty quick. I know it's night and some of you need to get back to your series or to play with your children. Number 1, what is going to help us go through this crisis and come out well is courage. So I want to make them C's. And number 1 is courage. 4 C's. Number 1 is courage. And we're talking about a few types of courage to deal with what we need to deal with. Number 1, moral courage. The ability in a crisis for us to do what is right. One of the things about waves and storms and crises is that they don't make character, but they reveal character. When money is less and there's more money than there's money, and when you're a lot more at home with your children, when you have to be a lot more accountable to your family, when you have to deal with the loss of job, this is a time that we get to have a revealed character. Who are we really? When things are tough, Who are we really? As storms or crises squeeze the true character out of us because you cannot pretend anymore. What is inside has to come out during a time of squeezing like this. So this is a time for us to have the moral courage to face ourselves, to appreciate the values that we hold on to, but also to appreciate the cracks in our character and begin to repair them. As you deal with your family, it's been reported that gender violence or domestic violence has gone way up, and a lot of it is us men who cause it. Not all the time, but most of the time. And some of it is just men are home right now. They've got to be accountable. They've got to be asked questions, and they're in this pressure cooker, and they just begin to explode. Now, we need the moral courage to know it's weakness. It's a revelation of weakness for a man instead of managing his emotions. To be out of control and hit his wife, be violent towards his children. It's not manly anywhere in the world. It's just not manly. And some of us, maybe we have short fuses, we get angry, and this happens. And what we need to do is to have the moral courage to ask another friend or to deal with it and say, how do I manage my anger problems? How do I make sure that I don't let it out on people? I get to manage it. And so the moral courage to commit to what is right in terms of connecting to your family now, what is right in terms of joining up to educate your children at home, what is right in terms of protecting yourself from this COVID-19 thing so that you don't get your family into trouble. What is right? Commit yourself to the right thing, and where you find that you've not been in the right thing, or you have character cracks or weaknesses, face them like a man. So moral courage. Number 2 is the reality courage. That's what I call it, reality courage. And this is a courage to accept the facts as they are. To accept right now we're in a crisis, to accept some of us, we don't have a job, to accept some of us, business may go several months or years back, just to accept that there's a reality in the world, financial and otherwise, that we're facing right now in medical, and that things are not normal. That it takes courage, not to deny or not to react against it, but to accept it, and not passively accept it, but accept it with initiative. One of the things we say in Man Enough or the XY journey is that a real man takes initiative. He doesn't just sit back and allow stuff to come at his chest. No, he stands up like a man, he faces what needs to be faced, and he deals with it. And so we're just saying we need reality courage to face up to the facts. What this means for our families, what this means for our investments, what this means for other things, and see what we need to do. So face the reality head on. Discuss it with your family, discuss it with your spouse if you have one, and let this reality be faced, not avoided. Don't go into a cave right now. Yes, be there at night and process, but wake up in the morning, get out of the cave and face reality. And so reality courage. So we're saying number 1 is courage, the characteristics that we need during this time of crisis. Courage, moral courage, reality courage, and thirdly, leadership courage. We're leaders in many ways. Our children are looking up to us. Our wives are waiting for some direction and for us to partner with them to deal with stuff at home. We're leaders at work. Some of you are business leaders. Some of you are unit leaders. Wherever it is where you have influence. This is a time to lead and not to back off. This is a time to self-lead first, and then secondly to lead others who look up to you for leadership. This is a time to come up with ideas, to tweak what you need to tweak. If you need to cut costs at work or in your life, you need to do that. That's leadership courage. It's when you sit people down and say, or sit yourself down and say, what do we need to do? What are some of the decisions I need to make or we need to make so that we survive through this stormy sees. That's leadership. That you rise up to the occasion when everyone is overwhelmed, you rear your head up and you look into the future and you begin to chart a course, of course, using all the resources around you. So true leaders don't lead alone. They lead with the team. They just know that they don't need to be the wisest person in the team. They just need to facilitate the channeling of the wisdom to a direction into the future. And so leadership courage, that's what you need to exhibit right now. Well, are you still with me? Courage says you confront the relationships you need to confront. That you need maybe to have a conversation with the people in your business, say, we really don't have money right now. We've got to make some hard decisions for all of us so that we may stay afloat. So, number one, courage. And courage is so important to masculinity that in traditional communities all over the world, the one test of masculinity during initiation periods was courage. And they used to ask, are you man enough to face to the facts, to face the fire and come out strong? That's what they used to ask. So this is a time for real men to stand up with the courage that you need. And of course, cowardice is not evil, but it must be challenged. You see, courage is the ability to overcome cowardice, to overcome fear at a time like this. It's not the absence of it. It's even the best of soldiers will feel afraid when bullets are flying over him. But courage is the ability to keep doing what you need to do in spite of fear or what you fear. All right, so courage. Number two. If you're writing, you can write. We're talking about 4 C's that we need during this time of crisis. So number one is courage, moral courage, reality courage, and leadership courage. Number 2, care. Care. You see, one of the things I like to say is that men stand tallest when they bend lowest to reach out to others and to care for others. And right now, it's a time for you to really care for your family. You have an opportunity. This is a blessing. You have more time at home. You have more time with your children, more time with some of your neighbors. If you're not married, you have more time to make some calls to some of the people who are in a hard place. This is a time to care. I really believe that compassion is what is right inside of a man. There's a courage that gets you out of the door, but there's care that gives the quality of your masculinity, that you care for others. What is courage if there's no care? It's going to hurt the world. You see, courage is supposed to be directed or channeled within the banks of care. That I am courageous and I'm going to use my masculine power to care for others, to bless others. I think it was George W. Bush Sr. who said in his inaugural address when he was becoming president, and he said that the greatest or best use of power is when you use it to bless others. That we need to use the power that we have. And he was speaking from a global perspective, political perspective. But now I'm speaking from a manly perspective. You've got manly power. And that power could hurt someone or bless someone, could bless or curse. That power could leave tears behind or a smile behind. It's you to decide. And care is what determines whether your masculine power is to be celebrated or to be cursed. And so we need to care. And this is a time to relate well with our families, to mend some of the relationships right there, to bring reconciliation in the areas where we need to bring reconciliation. Have sit-downs with your spouse. For those of you who are husband, have sit-downs with your children, with relatives, call them. But this is a good time to mend and improve the quality of your relationships through care. So care again brings healing to relationships, but also care gets to support the unfortunate. What a better time. There's never been a better time for us to show that we care for our neighbors who don't have, or those in places where they have lost their jobs, our brothers, our boys. This is a time to really care for one another, to be brothers one to another. I love what Proverbs 17 says. It says that a brother is born for adversity. A brother is born to stand with you during a time of adversity. So stand with a brother somewhere. They may not be brothers you've hung out together for a long time, but stand with someone somewhere. Stand with the brother. And a true friend doesn't desert others. So care for others who are going through a tough time during this time. So number 2 is care. The ability to be man enough to allow the soft side of you, the humane side of you, to reach out to your family, to neighbors, to extended relatives, to a neighbor is anyone who is in trouble. So care is the second C. C number 1 is courage. The courage to make the right moral choices and get to attack our character weaknesses and mend them. Number 2 is the courage to face reality and deal with it. And number 3 is the courage of leadership, self-leadership, but leading wherever you are. You know, one of the things I like, and I've said it several times during this crisis, is a serenity prayer. And this saint prayed and said, God, grant me, the ability to understand, the discernment, being able to understand what I cannot change. But there are some things in life I cannot change. And help me understand what I can change. And the wisdom and courage to know the difference. So I need wisdom to know what is a fact or reality that I cannot change. And I need to know what I can change and change it. And have peace with what I cannot change. So I love that. So number 1 is courage. Number 2 is care. We say as a man, you stand tallest when you employ your masculine power to take care of others, to show love to those near you. I love what 1 Corinthians says. You know, Paul gets poetic and he writes one of the greatest, love poems in the world, 1 Corinthians 13. And in the midst of a poem, he says this, when I was a child, I thought like a child, I behaved like a child, I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. It's interesting, in the midst of a poem on love, it brings in masculinity. You know why? I believe that the summary of character is love. The summary of character is love. All laws hinge on the fact of love. If I love someone else, I'm not going to, catch them on the road. I'm not going to not keep my word towards them. If I love my wife, I'm not going to do something wrong towards them. I'll try not to. And when I find myself, I'll apologize because I love. Love is really the principle of morality. And Jesus said, love, the greatest commandment is love the Lord your God and then love your neighbor as yourself. And every other laws and prophets hang on that. Well, so care is what releases, is really the conduit through which love is extended to other people. Number 3. So I believe true men are men who care, are men who show true love. Not lust, but love towards others. Number 3, and this is a quick one, you need to calculate. You need to do some math. You know, this is an obvious one. You need to get to realize that the world economy is taking a bashing right now. Things are going to be bad. Some of the people have said this is going to be worse than the Great Depression or to the same level. And I know we get to exaggerate a lot when we are within crisis, but I think by all standards that it's going to take quite a while before we recover financially, the world economy. So this is a time for you to be a man who can think and calculate. You need to know about your investments. You need to look at them and find advice. There are a lot of good investment advisors out there. You need to cut costs and realize you cannot continue as life as usual, even if you are not affected in terms of income or cash flow. But you need to know there's a future. There's a next year and what that may do to the economy. So you need to calculate and get to know where you need to cut costs, the investments you need to protect and the ones you need to release, maybe the changes in approach of how you manage your money and stuff like that. So just sit down and reflectively calculate. One of the things I've kept telling men or most people during this time is reflect. You know, when rock waves hit you, what you do in the midst of it, you don't just start doing some action. Those of you who swim, and something goes wrong with your swimming, you don't just start, kicking the water and all of that. No, you pause a bit and you think about what to do next so that you may get yourself out of it. And so you need to pause and reflect and calculate and say, how am I going to survive after COVID? How is life going to be? What do I need to drop? What do I need to pick up? What do I need to tweak? What do I need to kill? What is it that needs to happen? So calculate. That's straightforward. I will spend no more time there. Lastly, if you just joined us, we're talking about the 4 C's of pulling through this crisis as real men. And we said as real men, we need to be good men, which is about character, and good at being men, which is about competence, taking up responsibility, having the information and skills to do life. So character and competence, that's what we need. And we said, number one, we said it's courage. We need the courage to face the reality, the courage, moral courage to make the right choices, and where we have not, or where we see weaknesses revealed by this crisis, fix it. And then leadership courage as well. Number two, we've talked about care. We need to show the best of us, the best of masculinity cares, takes care of family, takes care of the weak, takes care of other people out there, never raises a hand to hit others, never gets involved in domestic violence or stuff like that. We need to care, be caring. Number three, we need to calculate and make some maths financially and otherwise so that we may take steps that will take us to the other side. Lastly, friends, is we need comrades. A real man doesn't walk alone. You know, alone is great in the movies. Alone is great in the movies. One man could take up, an entire army. And we know that's a lie. No one is a Superman, really. We all need each other. Even the superheroes, they need one another to be able to deal with some realities in their world. And so we need each other. This is a good time to think about brotherhood. Brotherhood. I like what Martin Luther King Jr. said at some point. He said, if we don't stand together as brothers, we're going to perish together as fools. We don't stand together as brothers and lock arms together, and we're going to fall together. And man, I always like to do this little thing that I saw from a friend of mine, that even the strongest of men, standing by yourself, a push from another man who is weaker than you would move you an inch or two. But when you lock arms with a few men and you try to push the same chest of that man, because their arms are locked, there's no movement. They're stable. And men, during times like this is when you get to think about your brothers. Who are the kind of brothers that you walk with? Who are the kind of brothers that would stand with you during this time? I like to say it, but for those of you who haven't heard it, let me say it as I close. I had a bad accident last year, almost took me out. And after that, I had many sober conversations with my family. And one of the days, as I talked about, asked them what they would have said in my funeral had I gone. My son asked me a very conceptual question. And this is what he asked me. He said, Dad, in fact, I think it's all of them who eventually now got asking me. But I think he started the story. And he said, Dad, if you had gone, who are the kind of brothers who would stand with us and make sure we do not suffer because you're gone? In other words, you were saying, Dad, do you have enough sense to walk with brothers and not walk alone? He just couldn't say it in those words. And I just want to encourage you right now and challenge you during this time to begin to say, who is my brotherhood? Who are the boys that I stand with? And of course, when it comes to picking your boys, you need to look at several things. Number one, vision. Are we going towards the same direction? Are we people whose faces are turned towards north or whichever direction you're going? Do we have the same vision that directs us towards a certain direction? So vision is important. Do we have a shared vision of life and worldview and where we're going? Number two is values. Do we have clear values? Because if you walk along someone who doesn't, believe in your values, and they're going to pull you into their values. Birds of the same feather flock. And it's just easier for someone else to pull you down. If you have high values and you hang out with men or brothers who have low values, then it's just easier for them to pull you down. So begin to ask, do we have shared values, a shared vision, shared values? And number three, do we have shared value for one another? Not values, character values, but value for one another. In other words, do we love each other? Are we committed towards each other's welfare? That's what love is basically. It's a commitment to the welfare of another. And so you need to ask yourself, do I value this dude? Is he a brother that I want to stand with and fight with and go to war with? I always tell men that every man needs a woman to die for, take a bullet for. But every man needs a brother to go to war with, needs a brother to go to war with, to stand with in the place of battle. And so you need a shared vision with these kind of brothers. You need shared values, and you need shared value for each other. So that you value them and they value you, you love each other, there's a commitment, you're ready to go. So begin to ask yourself right now, just evaluate your boys. Are these the guys you want to grow old around? Are these the guys you know are going to push you towards your best? Are these the boys who are going to call out true masculinity inside of you? Because a man is made a man among men. I always like to say man, to tell men at Man Enough. A man is made a man among men. And so it's the kind of brothers you have. And this is a good time while you're at home to choose a few brothers that you pray with regularly, that you strengthen each other, that you do some stuff together, that you can bare your chest to each other and really talk about real stuff that you're going through and encourage one another. So comrades. So there's a brotherhood that you need. 3 to 5 men. This is the time to choose them if you don't have them, to invest in them if you have them, and work with them. But number 2 as well, every David needs a Nathan. So I want to ask you, this is a good time to reflect. Do you have a Nathan? For some of you who are not biblically literate, then this is what it means. You know, there's a king who just was overwhelmed after he saw this lady taken up in a bath. And he was just overwhelmed with lust, and he got to sleep with her. And she was with child, and she was a wife to one of his boys who had gone to war for him on his behalf. And so they organized and killed the guy and all of that. And the guy was trying to cover up Brother Dave. Or David, King David in the Bible. And then Nathan came and gave him a word. And he said, there's a guy who had many sheep. And then he left his sheep and went to the neighbor's place, a guy who had 1 sheep. And then he took the guy's sheep and he killed him. I don't remember whether he added that part. But he took his neighbor's only sheep that he loved. And he said, what do you think should happen to that guy? And of course, David burns with anger and says, that guy is crazy. He should die right now. And then Nathan says, the guy is you. And he just goes into repentance and changing his life. And there's all of us as men, we need a Nathan, also Nathans, who can speak truth to us. And not mince their words and tell us when we're behaving foolishly, when we're doing what is going to destroy us. We need those kind of people. There's a lesson I've learned in the last 1 year since that time of storm. And of course, lastly, we need younger people that we're pouring ourselves into. You see, you're not as great until you pass on what you have to the younger generation. You've got to reproduce yourself. You've got to have legacy in others. So begin to invest in boys and help other people, younger men, rise up in the things that you've learned. Teach them out of your successes and your failures as well. And so have a brotherhood, men at your level. Have a man you look up to, or some men you look up to, your Nathans who can tell you the truth, and have some other men that you're raising up. I believe that really builds you up to be a great man. So those are the 4 things I wanted to share with us. Let me just say them again before I bring us to a close right now. And so we've talked about the 4 C's that we need during this time of crisis for us, not only to survive, but to thrive. Number 1 is courage. And, courage is at the center of masculinity. It's really the center board. It's what holds us together. Moral courage, reality courage, and leadership courage. Number two, we said we need to care. We need to unleash the love, the humanity that is locked up inside of us. We need to show God's love to other people around us, starting with our family, the people we care most for, and going to others and reconciling relationships and supporting the less fortunate. Number three, we need to calculate this financial. We need to make sure that we deal with our finances well during this time of economic crisis, during and after COVID-19. And lastly, we need comrades. Don't walk alone. You're not that great. We need each other. Greatness is in community, and we need each other. Well, let me remind you again, it's always a blessing for us to hang out with men. We have done this for years. Now we've taken over 20,000 men in several countries through this Man Enough program, OXY journey. And we want to invite you, those of you who have not done it, and those of you who have done it, tell those who have not done it that actually Sunday night we're going to have an open day when men are going to log in, and we're going to send you the details, and we're going to tell them what Man Enough is about, the XY journey, our experience, and then we're going to see how to do a 5-week Man Enough. Of course, it's not going to cost what it costs out there. We're going to make it so affordable for everyone out there. We're going to do it online, have conversations, and when COVID is done, we will meet together for some retreat and do some stuff together. But it's going to be awesome. If you need to sign up your son or sign up a brother or someone else, this is a time to spread love and just share care to others and bring them in so that we share together. In fact, let me just mention the topics we get to go through. This is a book we use, and so we're going to still use it as our manual, Unleash the Man Within. And I'll just say the topics and then I'll pray for us and close. So we should begin by having rules of engagement, and then we get to talk about manhood defined. That's my favorite topic. We talk about the 5 things that define what it means to be a man anywhere. And number 2, we talk about the roles of a man, the 4 key roles that we play as kings, as warriors, and 2 others. Then we talk about a man on a mission, having a purpose, a direction. We say you're dangerous against all your enemies of laziness and distraction when you're purposed. You're like an arrow that is going for a target. So man on a mission. Then we talk about the wounded warrior. A lot of us men get wounded and we never get to fix that, and it influences behavior. So we talk about the wounds of our dads and moms and work and life generally, wounds and how to deal with them. And we talk about man and sex. How can we talk about masculinity and not talk about these central topics? So we talk about sexuality and how to behave in a way that sexuality doesn't become a distraction for us. Doesn't destroy us. Then we get to talk about finishing well. So we look at some of the ways to manage our finances. We look at bad crowds and the kind of guys we hang out with. We look at addictions and excesses. We look at different things which are likely to blow us up before we get to the finish line. Then we talk about code of honor. I love it. The 5 values of honor that men need anywhere to be honorable. And lastly, we talk about for God and country. So we just want to invite you for the conversation on Sunday and next week as we launch this. And hey, man, this is a good opportunity for us to be real men. Our wives can't wait to see the glory of your masculinity. In the way you treat them, the way you take care of them, the way you pick up your courage and be the man that you're supposed to be right now. Your children dream of that man, real man, who's going to lead them and lead them, the little small civilization, lead them into the future. Women out there, they look for real men. There are many who are waiting to get married to real men. In fact, if you're waiting for one of those ladies, just let me know. I'll let them know that there's some real men here. And that is on a light note. But there are many women who come up to me and say, do you know some good men that we could get married to? Women are longing for that. And of course, God wants men who make him proud. So may we go and be the man that we were created to be, a blessing to the world and not a curse. Let me pray for us right now. Lord Almighty, I just want to pray you're the creator of man. I want to pray that masculinity will be a blessing to those we care for and those in the world. And during this time of crisis, as we work on those forces, we just want to pray that you walk with us and you will help us get to the other side of this crisis. Lord, the men who are in a hard place right now, relationally and financially, we pray for your help. So Lord, just help us. Hold our hands. Excuse me. So Lord, just help us. Hold our hands and help us cross this tumultuous time. So I bless my men right now and I pray for a good night. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, thanks, man. Please leave something there of Transform Nations Wall. You could ask questions there. We're going to get back to you. Have a good night.